Go. So hello and welcome to this program of the University of Arkansas Small Business Technology and Development Center. We are very pleased to be able to bring you these educational programs to help support small businesses. Please be advised that we will be recording the webinar for ASB TDC education purposes. And as a registrant and attendee of the webinar, you will be emailed a copy of this presentation and recording. If we cannot see your full name in the participants, please send a message to us, all panelists, with your full name, and Julie will be able to get that down to make sure that you get a copy of everything. I will introduce Natasha momentarily, but first I'd like to introduce us and tell you a little bit about ASB TDC. I am Amy Robinson. I'm a specialty consultant with ASB TDC, and I'm here with my colleague and co-host, Chris Case. If you do not know about the Small Business Development Center, it is a one-stop shop for startups and existing small businesses. We are associated with the University of Arkansas and affiliated with the SBA and statewide ASB TDC. We are also part of a national network of more than 1,000 small business centers. You can find an SBTDC or an SBDC anywhere in the country. Locally, we offer complimentary one-on-one consulting that includes business planning, marketing analysis and strategy, financial modeling, and so much more. So we hope that you will be able to reach out to us very soon. If you are not already a client, we encourage you to visit us at sbtdc.uark.edu. There you will also find all of our events, some tools, and we will be posting all of those links in the chat momentarily. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you to give kind of an overview of today and how things are going to work.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amy. So today we're happy and excited to be bringing you Choosing the Right E-commerce Platform. Now, this is going to be a webinar format, so you will be on mute, but please participate via the Q&A or the chat. We're going to be monitoring those very closely. If someone does ask a question in the Q&A that you have as well, please feel free to just upvote that. So that will take priority and we will make sure that that question is answered. Please note that you have the ability to be anonymous via Q&A, but not in the chat. We will be monitoring questions and asking them where appropriate as we go along. You're also welcome to raise the hand little button using the participants window during the Q&A session at the end, and we will unmute you so you can also ask your questions personally. Again, we're going to be monitoring the Q&A and the chat windows very closely and answering those questions and also compiling those for later on when you'll be able to ask those questions. Amy.
Yes. And while we get to know Natasha, we would also like to get to know you. Natasha would like for this to be an interactive session, so please post in the chat about what industry you're in and maybe what stage of your e-commerce journey that you're in. So tell us, have you started yet? Do you already have an e-commerce platform built, but you're not loving it? Or maybe you've been doing it for a while and you want to know some of the latest updates, tips, or tricks, or you have some very specific questions. This will help Natasha speak to you and your business a little bit more easily. And so now, the moment we've all been waiting for, we are happy to introduce our presenter, Natasha Murphy. Natasha is in Atlanta, where it is also cold, but maybe not as cold as it is in Arkansas. Nicely Built provides digital marketing services and includes brand designs and websites built to engage and convert users. Natasha is passionate about not only her clients, but helping small businesses and large navigate the confusing and ever-changing world of e-commerce, especially right now, right, Natasha? She calls both her personal experience calls on both of her personal experiences as an employee in the coding world, not anything I'm ever comfortable with. So I'm glad that she's here. And now as an entrepreneur helping other entrepreneurs. So we're very pleased to have her with us today. So welcome, Natasha. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We are excited to have you again here. And as we said, the ever-changing world of e-commerce, it's an ever-growing world. So we're excited to hear about some of your client stories as well as helping everybody else through this. So, and thank you all participants for joining and posting right now. So we are going to be monitoring that, and take it away, lady.
Yeah, this is definitely a very interesting time for the world of online retail. I know that we are one of the few industries that kind of saw an uptick in business when the world started to shut down last year, alongside PPE and possibly toilet paper. A lot of people really rushed to start selling online if they hadn't been already. And people that were already selling online wanted to make even more of an investment in that online sales channel. So it's been a very interesting past year. We typically help traditional online retailers, so boutique owners, makers that are producing their own product and want to sell direct to consumer. But that changed over this past year, and we've been working with a lot of non-traditional online sellers, from coffee shops to we even working with a local popsicle vendor. So everybody is scrambling to sell online. And we've even had some clients that, even though they didn't have a physical product to sell necessarily, they still had an idea for an online subscription service for their services, or they wanted to enlist us to kind of help them build out an online course. So really kind of challenged our notions of what e-commerce means. And it's been and continues to be really interesting. So I think that this is a really exciting time to just kind of talk about anything related to e-commerce. So for everyone in attendance today, I'm not sure if you're selling online currently, if it's something you've been meaning to do and just haven't got around to doing it yet, or maybe you're just passing through, just kind of like curious about, e-commerce. Hopefully, no matter where you're at in your journey, you're going to take away something from today's presentation.
So far, we have mostly new, just starting, thinking about it, no e-commerce platform yet. We do have somebody talking about Rejoicey, which is a community platform where they are hosting, and you go on there and you build your site, and then you're there with a bunch of other companies. Yeah, it is. It's actually a startup out of Northwest Arkansas, so that's why
Very cool.
It is. Yeah,
and Natasha, we've got a variety of businesses too, selling PPE to bakery supplies to ceramics and sourdough bread. So you've got a great variety here.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I like that. So, okay. Well, we can dive right in. I'm going to skip the slide that talks about me, because you ladies did such a great job of introducing me. And we can just kind of get right into a conversation about choosing an e-commerce platform, because it sounds like there's a lot of people in attendance here today that are thinking about that. So the gist of this presentation lays out several different options for an e-commerce platform. We pulled this list of recommendations together a while ago, and we've been updating it on an as needed basis since we first created it. So when we were pulling together this list of e-commerce platforms, we really wanted to be specific and intentional about the criteria that we were using to evaluate the options. So we looked at three main things when we were examining each platform. The first of which was ease of use and popularity. So that's going to be how easy it is for the end user, which would be you guys in this case. How easy are you going to find the software to be? So like how user friendly it is. The second one would be quality and appeal. So with each e-commerce platform, what features are available? Can you do things like set up a subscription? Can you customize the transactional emails? So those are a couple examples of features. Also templates, you know, like what tools are they going to give you out of the gate in order to set up your store? Is it going to be something you can do yourself, or are you going to need to hire a developer to help you? And lastly, is it a managed or a do-it-yourself option? So is this like a service you're going to pay money to every month, or are you going to have to go and find some server space on which to host this bad boy? So that was the second set of criteria that we looked at. And lastly, but definitely not least important, is customer service. So we really kind of thought about whether or not each one of these options has customer service, because that is something that our clients, they always need. So some of the options, they do have customer service, which is great. Other platforms we've included, they don't have customer service. So that's important to note as you're really kind of thinking through your choice of platform, because if it doesn't come with customer service out of the gate, then you're going to want to make sure that you make good friends with a developer who can help you. So without further ado, we're going to walk through the e-commerce platforms we pulled together. And just so you guys know, we're going to be starting out with the least complex option and working our way up to more enterprise level. So we are going to go through them kind of like, you know, this is great for starting out. This is what you need if you're doing $2 million a year in revenue. So the first platform we're going to talk about is Etsy, which is a very common starting point for many merchants, especially makers. So if you're making your product, you know, I think that you would naturally gravitate towards Etsy, even though more and more resellers have been joining the platform in recent years. So Etsy's great for merchants that are just starting out. If you're looking to dip a toe into selling online, Etsy's a great option. They have really good customer service. So if you run into a problem, there's going to be someone there that can help you. And it's going to be best for merchants that are looking to stay small. So if you need a solution that's going to allow you to kind of sell products as a side hustle, and you don't want it to become your full-time gig, Etsy's a really good option. The downsides to Etsy are that it has a very limited feature set, and it has very low level, if not non-existent, customization options and marketing features. So it's important to note, Etsy, it really is kind of a marketplace. So you're not using it to necessarily build a store of your own. You're creating a profile that is shown on the marketplace, and you're being viewed alongside lots of other profiles. So that's in a nutshell what Etsy is. So it really is a starting out option. So it's great for crafters, makers, and other kind of one-person outfits that are looking to just sell online.
We have one of our Etsy users is also talking about the fact that it also eats into profit. There was a question, and if we can kind of maybe do this side by side. I know that you have your little cost dollar sign right there. If you have any ideas around some of these costs as that platform grows, that would be great too. And what she's mentioning is that, you know, it especially eats profit if they bring a buyer to the table. So there are some of those considerations as well, percentage wise.
Yeah, I know that Etsy and all marketplaces, really, they aren't necessarily going to charge you a monthly fee, but they do take a outsized transaction rate. So they're just off the top, they're going to take like a pretty hefty percentage. I'm not sure what it is, For most, like if you were to just have a payment processor and be transacting and not part of a marketplace, the average is 3% plus 15 cents transaction rate. And I believe Etsy takes closer to like 10 or 12%. So it is a pretty hefty tax that they apply to you for using their marketplace. But they do they're also providing you with kind of an out of the box, ready to use solution. So that's the trade-off.
And so that's a little bit of what you were talking about when it came to looking at your growth potential. Like, what are your goals? This is one place, but what are your goals longer term?
Yeah. I mean,
I want to stay small. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to stay small and you know that you're always just going to kind of make things and put them on your Etsy store, then, maybe take a month or two off and it's not going to like affect your ability to pay your mortgage. Etsy's fine. It really is for kind of the hobbyist. But if you're looking to get really serious about sales, then this is not the platform to grow into. That transaction rate, it's always going to be there. And as you sell more and more and more, they're going to take more and more and more. And so after some degree of time, you're going to start to lose money. Yeah. So I mean, if you think about it in terms of a seller who sells $30,000 on Etsy, and let's say they take 10% as their transaction fee, that's $3,000. Whereas you could be over on a platform like Shopify paying $30 a month, which is $360 a year, and then paying 3% of that $30,000, which would be so I think it would work out to be less. I think you would pay maybe like $2,000. And of course, like that scales. So like the more you sell, the more money that you're potentially leaving on the table or letting Etsy have. So it's definitely not something I would suggest for someone who's looking to really kind of, grow their online store. So the next option we're going to talk about is Square. This is another really popular option. It is good for merchants who want to sell online, but also want to sell in person. So if you're a crafter who wants to have kind of an online store and you want to go to craft fairs and sell in person, then Square would be a really good fit for you. So it comes with a pretty lightweight point of sale solution baked into the platform. So if you have 10 items, you would enter that into your store. And then when someone purchases online, it debits that inventory. And when you sell one in person, it also debits that same inventory. So it makes keeping track of what you actually have on hand to sell manageable. So with Square, it also has the ability for you to categorize your products, which can be really helpful, especially if you have a complex inventory or at some point you're going to sell a lot of products. That categorization comes in really handy. And it has some pretty good customization options. They're not going to be as robust as some of the other ones, some of the other options we're going to look at, but they're pretty good. They do have a free option, and it's pretty good. So I think that overall, Square would be a great option for anyone who's kind of looking to build a proof of concept. So if you're looking to start selling online and don't want to make a huge investment, then Square would be worth looking at. Interestingly enough, Square's the only payment processor that we've been able to find for CBD products. There's not a good payment processor option for Shopify, and you can't sell CBD products on Squarespace. So if you have a CBD product, then Square is probably your only option. So Square would be good for crafters, makers, and other one-person outfits that are looking to sell online and in person.
So we do have some questions piling up around Square, and I know that
Sure.
as we've been working with companies, especially through like getting PPP and some of those other things, that reportability for finances is definitely important. So fantastic, so fantastic for inventory. And one of the questions is, compatible? Is it compatible with QuickBooks? Is it, compatible with some of these others? Because a lot of times what we're getting from anything from salons to product companies is, they're reporting Square as their books, and that's not always official enough. So
So the good news is so to the QuickBooks question, there's QuickBooks Desktop and there's QuickBooks Online. So it's very hard to integrate QuickBooks Desktop with anything because it's not cloud-based. But QuickBooks Online easily integrates with most of the options that we're going to be talking about today. So it does integrate with Square. So you would establish an API connection, and your sales, your transactions would automatically flow from Square into QuickBooks Online. That's the beauty of most of the SaaS options, software as a service, of which Square is one. That's what makes them so great, is that they are readily compatible with other cloud-based services that have an API.
So in this case, Denise is asking about QuickBooks Desktop, so that is not compatible, and it probably isn't compatible for Shopify or some of the other ones.
No, if you're in QuickBooks Desktop, I would really advise you to, when you can, go ahead and migrate to QuickBooks Online. And it's something QuickBooks will help you do. Like, you can contact their customer service department and they will help you migrate your past history and just get everything set up in QBO. QuickBooks Desktop is, it's kind of it's an island. You can't really get to it to get data out of it, and you can't really send any data to it. So I would really suggest that you consider QuickBooks Online.
Fantastic. And I think that the other question from her was about, is Square a searchable marketplace like Etsy? But I don't think that it is. Is that right?
No. So Square is not a marketplace. It really is more of a true software as a service. So you would set up your site. You could have a custom domain. There might be like a Square merchant directory, but I don't think that you would see a lot of traffic coming from that. Right. So, whereas on Etsy, you can kind of expect to have some sort of like ready-made audience that's going to see your product. You're not going to necessarily have that with Square. So you're going to have to do the marketing on your own. You're not going to necessarily have that captive audience.
Excellent. And I think we've got a big fan of Square. Stephanie is posting some thank you for contributing some information about their HR functions with Square, and that you can develop reward programs for customers, targeted communications, and some of these other things. So obviously we've got an experienced Squarespace lover with us. So thank you for continuing to add to that conversation. I appreciate that.
And Natasha, let me just pipe in here just for a second. This might be a little premature, but we had talked about Etsy, and that Etsy takes care of the sales tax, especially across the state borders. Can you, when you're talking about the rest of these, can you also add that in if they do that automatically?
Yeah, most of them are not going to. So, and I should point out, Square is different from Squarespace. There are two different options. We're going to talk about Squarespace a little bit later on. So with Square, you are going to be responsible for keeping track of sales tax, keeping track of the states in which you need to pay it, and making those payments quarterly. So yeah, I think that Etsy is going to be the only option we talk about where they handle that for you.
And I'm going to go ahead and put, you had mentioned to us, because this really is a hot topic, the sales tax. And so if we don't get everything answered, I'm going to put your website in here, because you have a blog post coming out about that later today. So that'll be something, just hold that for a reference point. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So the next option we're going to talk about is Wix. And so Wix is going to be it's software as a service. So it's service that you're going to pay monthly for. Wix is a drag and drop editor. So this is going to be like, if you want to this is the first option for people that are truly looking to get serious about their online store. Because with Wix, you can be super hands-on with the design of your website. So you can, with little to no coding knowledge, you can design the online store, make it really pretty, and have a really professional looking store within, a couple of days. It has a really robust app integration. So there's a lot of integrations that are available for Wix. So QuickBooks Online is one of them. Most of the major email service providers are compatible with Wix. So you could integrate MailChimp or Constant Contact. So it has a lot of really great add-on services that you can just kind of integrate just right out of the box. There is a free option. The features are pretty limited, but it works well enough, if you wanted to test it out before really fully committing to the platform and starting to pay. So I like Wix. I think it's a good option for anyone who, wants to get serious about running an online store. They do not have a POS, a point of sale option. So that's something to note. But I've seen quite a few, you would be surprised at how many stores I've seen hire Nicely Built to move them into a bigger platform because they've hit $1 million in revenue on Wix. So it can process a lot of orders, and it does a really good job. I mean, of course, you will graduate out of it one day, but if you're just getting started out, or if you're doing, 50,000 in annual revenue, then it's a good solid option. So this would be a good option for small shops that are looking to sell online, that really want to have a very custom website.
We have another comment that it's also compatible with Square, and so you kind of get the best of both in that kind of scenario, which is nice.
Very nice. So the next option we're going to talk about is Squarespace. And I believe this is what the commenter was referencing earlier. Mm-hmm. So Squarespace is another drag and drop option that's going to let you design your store with little to no coding knowledge. And I think it's important to kind of take this moment in time to make an important distinction between Squarespace and Wix, and some of the options that we're going to talk about a little later. Squarespace and Wix are both drag and drop website builders. That's why they were created. That is their primary purpose. And the e-commerce functionality has been added to the platform after the fact. So that's a pretty important distinction to make. The next options we're going to talk about next are true e-commerce platforms. And you might think to yourself, what's the difference? But there's actually a pretty big difference just in the way the dashboards, the user interfaces are built. Like you can see Wix and Squarespace, they're really geared towards people that want to design their own website, whereas Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, like they're really set up for store owners. I digress. So Squarespace it's another great option for do-it-yourself merchants who are getting started out and want to be very hands-on in the design of their first website. They have a lot of beautiful templates, and you can very easily build a very pretty store in a small amount of time. They do have its top-level flexibility in design and product placement. So this is definitely, in terms of drag and drop editors, kind of the Mercedes-Benz or even the Rolls-Royce. Like they've got some really nice customization options. And a lot of people don't realize that Squarespace provides a complete e-commerce platform in addition to being used for just kind of basic portfolio websites. So Squarespace is good. Small to medium shops looking to sell online with a custom website. I do not think they have a point of sale option yet. So this would really be for just online sales.
So Natasha, can you maybe recap like what's the ideal business for, or an ideal business for Squarespace? And I think some of the questions kind of coming up are, do I already have my own website? Does it integrate with it? Is it in place of? So some of those.
Yeah, so Squarespace and Wix, they are going to be the platform for your website. So if you have something else already, then Squarespace would likely, or Wix would likely replace what you have. So Squarespace and Wix, I think that they work fine for people that don't have a lot of employees, so solopreneurs. So if it's you and maybe one other person working in the dashboard to fulfill orders, answer customer service questions, and otherwise just kind of run the store, these options are fine. Once you get to the point where you have multiple staff, it's a lot easier to run the day-to-day in one of the other platforms.
Okay, fantastic. And as we're kind of going through, we also have another company who is maybe not selling a product, but a service. So loading trucks for shippers and receivers, and kind of wondering if any of these platforms are ideal for a business like that.
So explain to me like the product, or what are...
So I believe, if I'm looking back at some of my information, and of course, please feel free to expand on that, and we can even save that for the Q&A.
Yeah.
Work through a couple of these companies together. So why don't we do that? If you want to send that information to just the panelists, then we'll kind of explore that. I think we've got somebody else that would be a great conversation at the end too.
Cool. So the next platform we're going to talk about is Shopify. And I have to be completely transparent and say that I'm a big Shopify fangirl. I've been building with this service for close to 10 years. And this is the platform that my business specializes in. So if I seem a little bit biased, it's because I am. So Shopify it's good for experienced merchants. So if you know what you're doing and you're like, I need to enter my cost per item in addition to the MSRP so that I can quickly calculate how much money I'm truly going to make, Shopify is a really good option for you. They've got super sophisticated tools just baked into the platform so that, for example, you can enter a sales tax ID for each state, and it's stored directly in the platform. And they have some of the most sophisticated apps and integrations on the market. The Shopify development team worked hand in hand with Facebook on the latest iteration of the Facebook sales channel. So it was created as a direct extension of the Shopify Facebook sales channel. So they're always just kind of leading the pack in terms of like research and development and just new e-commerce ideas. So it's great for merchants that want to grow really quickly or want to sell in a high volume. So if you know you want to be moving 1,000 units a week, then Shopify is a good option. They've got some really great tools in the back end that really speed up the process of fulfillment. So for example, you can bulk print your packing slips and your shipping labels, which, you know, at face value doesn't seem like that fancy of an option, but trust me, if you spend any amount of time like printing packing slips and shipping labels individually for every purchase, you will come to appreciate that feature very quickly. So they have a great design, template customization, just options for building your store, deciding what it looks like. It's important to note that it's not a drag and drop editor. So you're selecting a theme, you're putting it in place, and then you're changing images, changing colors. But you're not going to be able to necessarily drag and drop the various elements of the website into place, like directly on your screen. You know, with that said, they've got some really nice themes and that have customization options baked into them. And depending on what platform you are transferring from, it's pretty easy to get into Shopify. So for example, if you are coming over from Wix, migrating your orders and your customers and your products is a pretty straightforward process. Replatforming is never fun. It's a necessary evil. So if you can make it any easier on yourself, then you should. But in my experience, replatforming websites to Shopify is pretty straightforward. It's a hosted solution, software as a service. So they're gonna, much like Squarespace, Etsy, and even Square. I mean, most of the options we're going to talk about today are going to take responsibility for things like PCI compliance, order encryption, you know, all this stuff that used to keep merchants up late at night. You don't really have to worry about that anymore because these platforms take care of it. Shopify may require a design development partner. Again, I'm biased. I've seen people get in there and, you know, set up their own stores. I talk to merchants that have done so literally every day of my life. I can say that working with a professional will only elevate your online store, not only in terms of aesthetics, but also in terms of functionality. So if you work with a professional, they'll be able to help you figure out what types of extensions and features to offer to your customers, and then also put those in place for you. You know, we do a ton of building out personalization options, implementing loyalty programs, all sorts of stuff for our clients. So Shopify is great for shops of any size that are looking to sell online and in person. They have a pretty solid point of sale system, great hardware, that really want a custom feature rich website. So if you want to go ahead and take it to the next level and have a more professional, robust website, then Shopify is a great place to start out. Their basic plan is $30 a month, and depending on what payment processor you choose, because you have a choice of what you transact through, the transaction rate is around 2 or 3% and 15 cents.
So real quick, Natasha, and because we've got a couple of questions on this, and it is, some of these integrate. So for instance, we've got a WordPress user or somebody that may be interested in using WordPress. Shopify integrates within WordPress. It's not its own, whereas Squarespace is kind of its own thing. Yes, no? Like, how does all of that work?
So, I have some pretty strong opinions about the dual platform approach to running a website. 99.9% of the cases, I think you just need to pick a platform. WordPress / WooCommerce, you can sell things online with just a WordPress site. And Shopify has a blog feature. So, using two platforms is, in my experience, really just kind of leads to confusion, because you've got these two systems to maintain. Also, usually when people are using two separate systems, they're making use of a subdomain. So it's website.com and then shop.website.com, which will, at the very top level, split your traffic. So in terms of like long-term SEO strategy, like, it's not a good idea. So that would be my advice, is to pick a platform. And we're going to talk about WooCommerce during this presentation. So that's coming up.
And so where does WordPress have, it doesn't have an individual shopping platform capability?
It does.
It does.
Okay. It does. Yeah. So I think, is it next? Because if it's next, I think
it's okay. All right. Well, as long as you're going to cover that.
BigCommerce. BigCommerce is next. Right. I think WooCommerce is coming up.
All right.
So BigCommerce it's similar to Shopify in that it's software as a service. So you'll pay monthly, and then you'll also pay the transaction fees. It's also e-commerce platform first, kind of content management system second. So BigCommerce is going to be good for experienced merchants that are expecting to scale really quickly or sell in high volume. So this is great software for stores that are going to be making a lot of sales. It has a clean dashboard with built-in features to immediately start accepting credit cards, which is a nice perk. Much like Shopify, it's a hosted solution. So BigCommerce is actually going to take responsibility for a lot of the things that historically could get you into trouble legally. So, making sure that the user data is safe, making sure that someone doesn't break into your database and steal all your credit card numbers. So they're going to take on the onus of that responsibility, which is nice. With that said, it's not a drag and drop web editor. So if there's something specific that you want, you're probably going to want to enlist a design development partner to help you get there. It's you're going to need to have at least like a basic understanding of code in order to like build this baby out. So BigCommerce would be good for medium to large shops that are looking to sell online with a custom feature-rich website. And I do not believe BigCommerce has a point-of-sale system. So this would really just be for people that want to sell online. Yay! WordPress WooCommerce. Guys, I have to tell you, WordPress is my first love. I started building with WordPress in like 2005. I love WordPress. And even though these days the majority of websites I build are on the Shopify platform, I still have like a pretty good number of WordPress sites that we build and maintain. So this is a good platform. To answer your question, WordPress itself does not come with e-commerce functionality out of the box. However, you can use the plugin WooCommerce to add that e-commerce functionality to a WordPress website. It does take a lot more time to set up than Shopify or Squarespace or Wix, because like you just have to go in and configure so many of the settings yourself. However, there are some instances where that's necessary. Take, for example, the CBD store I was talking about earlier. We couldn't sell on Shopify. We had to use the Square payment gateway. So the easiest solution was to build a WordPress WooCommerce site. And that's worked fine. So WooCommerce is going to be best for experienced merchants that are looking for functionality not available through the hosted solutions. So like if you have a product that's like on, Shopify's blacklist of things you're not supposed to sell, WooCommerce probably doesn't care. And so you can just, work with them. And when I say that, I'm not talking like illegal things, people. Like they don't allow the sale of alcohol on the Shopify platform without a lot of paperwork. They also don't allow the sale of hair extensions, which in Atlanta, that's a big business. So I've definitely come across many examples of businesses that couldn't sell on Shopify that are legitimate businesses that need another solution, which in most cases is WooCommerce. So and then of course, like if you are a serious blogger, the WordPress content management system capabilities of WordPress are unparalleled. So, if you're an influencer or someone who's going to make really heavy use of content marketing, then this would also be a good platform to consider. Even though in recent years, like I've advised our influencers and our bloggers to kind of bite the bullet and learn to live with the less sophisticated CMS capabilities of Shopify so that they can have the e-commerce functionality, because that really, at the end of the day, is what like drives the conversion and creates revenue. So WordPress is going to be best for merchants who plan on using a really heavy hitting content marketing strategy. So think like you write a blog post, and in that blog post, there's a section at the bottom that's like shop the story. So if you're going to kind of like use a strategy like that, then WordPress WooCommerce is a really good option. It's self-hosted, which means you're responsible for keeping it on a server and making sure it doesn't get hacked. So you definitely have to find a design development partner if you decide to go this route. I would not advise a layperson to try to set this up on their own. Usually what I find is that when they do, they end up with a WordPress.com website, which is completely different than the actual like WordPress package of software. So, I mean, even at the very first step, it just becomes super confusing. So if you decide to go this route, make a friend that's good with computers, who does this for a living. So WordPress WordPress WooCommerce is going to be best for medium to large shops that are looking to sell online with a custom feature-rich website.
So Natasha, would you just take a moment? We just have a few more minutes, and I know that we have a few questions to cover. So when you're thinking about sizes, because we've got a couple of these questions, are you talking about, you know, when you say small to medium or medium to large, what are you typically gauging on that? Is that sales? Is it products? Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of sales and products. Okay. You know, you can think about it. Okay, so sales isn't always the best measure, because like you could do $300,000 in sales, but if your product is $100,000, then you're only really making 3 sales. So I think it's better to think about it in terms of the number of sales. So if you're doing more than 500 orders a month, then you probably want to look at one of the more robust e-com platforms like Shopify or BigCommerce or WooCommerce. So yeah, I mean, that's really kind of what it comes down to for me in terms of like size. It's the sheer number of like orders that you're having to process.
Well, and so some of the other things, and I know you've got a few more slides here, are kind of when we think of e-commerce, and we do have, you know, Thomas is talking about a service that he's selling. That's, you know, do you have often services that require an e-commerce platform? Okay.
Oh yeah.
And it's more.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, especially during the pandemic, we've had photographers roll out subscription plans that, you know, people can buy and go ahead and prepay for 4 photography shoots a year. Great. You know, I've seen a number of consultants, you know, hire us to like either build something where people can like book and pay for a consultative call with them, or, you know, they hire us to help them build out like a series of like courses, which has been interesting. So
yeah, courses, that would make sense. That's fantastic. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like a lot of this also is imagining where your company wants to go. We did have a question really early on that I think is definitely relevant now, which is, you know, is it, you know, do you have to think about everything ahead of time? Is it okay to add this on later? Like how much thought, so let's just say that you choose Squarespace instead of WordPress early on. Are you stuck with it if, let's just say, your volume gets bigger than what Squarespace is usually accustomed for? Is that, how far ahead do you feel like people should be thinking when they're going into one of these platforms?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we do about half of our business is helping people re-platform, which means you move from one platform to another. So I do think it's important for people to really think about this up front, because re-platforming is a pain. But more importantly, one thing I hear over and over from our clients that do re-platform, like they moved from Wix to Shopify, is that they're just amazed at how much more user-friendly it is. We typically see conversion rates go up across the board and a bump in sales. So, you know, it's important to consider that, because I don't want to like poo-poo some of these like earlier suggestions, but if you're using inferior tech to run your e-commerce store, then you also can't be surprised when you don't see like the best numbers. Like so, I mean, that, I don't know if that is good advice or not, but you know, if you're going to get serious about your online store, I would suggest kind of just starting out where you know you're going to be eventually, like BigCommerce or Shopify or WooCommerce.
Yeah, so there's a lot of personal, you know, gauging that you need to do on how big you want to get. And it sounds also that there's kind of a self-managed versus you need a partner in this. So you need a Natasha to kind of help you navigate some of these bigger waters. And, Squarespace is a great advertiser for, do it yourself, just have a website up in a day, that kind of thing. Even though there's a lot of strategy behind that we would personally want to help people navigate. But I think that there's a little bit of how much is just you. And like you said, can you leave it for 2 months and not worry about making the mortgage payment? Or is this your livelihood? Is this your forever? So I want to let you finish up so that we make sure that we get there, and we do have potentially a couple of other questions at the end that we can wait around for, but we want to make sure that if you only have an hour today, that we get the rest of this information out.
Yeah, and we can kind of quickly go through this last couple of slides. They really are more enterprise level. So people, if you're doing outside of $1 million in sales, and like you've had to hire a staff to help with fulfillment, then you want to think about Magento, which is like all these options that we're going to go through here at the end are self-hosted, meaning that you put them on a server and you're responsible for them. So Magento and all of these options will definitely require a design development partner. So Magento, as well as Volusion, which we're going to talk about in a second, is their enterprise level platforms. So the reason that people pick these is because they need a really customizable solution to integrate with their enterprise resource planning. So, they've, at this point, if you're selling at this level, chances are you probably have like a really custom solution for your fulfillment and like all these other systems that need to like hook in and work alongside your e-com platform, that's when you would really kind of need to pull in one of these heavy hitters. So the two big ones are Magento and Volusion. I wrapped it up really quick.
All done. Yeah. So one of the things I want to let everybody know is that, yes, you love to interact on Instagram. So if you go to @BuiltNicely on Instagram and private message, that's one way. And then we also did previously post your nicelybuilt.com. So we'll post that again, make sure everybody's got that as you've got some great blog posts and some other things that can go on. We'll also go ahead and, in case we can't get to your question, just remind everybody that ASBTDC, we are here for you also as your consultants. It's no cost to you. We are underwritten by the university and SBA and a bunch of other generous grants to make sure that that we can do this for you. So so that is where you can find us at any point in time. So I'll repost those links before we get here to the end. A couple of the questions, and again, if you have to go, we've loved having you and we understand that, but we're going to stay here for a few more minutes for a few questions. I know, Diane, that you had quite a few questions about, you obviously at the very, very beginning of what you're doing. One of the questions Diane had about, like, I already have a .com. I've got this URL that I love, and does that integrate into any of these? So she went with Squarespace. Would she be able to use the .com, the URL that she has made available? Yeah.
Yeah, and pretty much every single option that we've talked about that has an online store channel, so Etsy doesn't, but the other options, just within the dashboard, there's a place for you to connect a custom domain to the store. And they all have pretty straightforward instructions that walk you through how to do that. And some of them even have kind of these one-click tools where you'll click it, you'll log into GoDaddy, it'll say, hey, can we connect it? And you'll say yes, and it does it for you.
That's great. That's fantastic. And I do, I'll re-encourage everyone definitely to reach out to us. We can help navigate some of these things. And that way, if you do need a Natasha in your life, because there are a lot of options. There's a lot of do-it-yourself, that people that get sold, but then you need something else. I'd love to hear, Natasha, what's the most unique business that you have converted into an e-commerce platform, something that you were like, this can totally be an e-commerce platform? Because when we think about e-commerce, we think about stuff, we think about things.
Yeah.
And so
that's such a good question. Wow, that's such a good question.
And maybe it was driven by the pandemic and kind of being forced to go online.
I'm trying to think of something that really just kind of like took off, because it is the more traditional, product-based businesses. Those are the ones that, continue, they do the most in revenue. Mm-hmm. I don't really have a good, I can tell you one of my favorite companies. Yeah. It's a Atlanta-based company, and they developed chicken snacks. Like they're grubs, and so they like farm these grubs and they make chicken snacks, and they like apparently sell like hotcakes, and people all love them. And it's like super sustainable. So that's probably the most interesting business I've seen. I remember when they first came to us, and I was just like, what?
That's awesome. Well, I still want to get back to Thomas's question. He has a home base set up, and he spends like an average of 60 or 70 hours a week cold calling, email marketing. And what his business is a freight broker agent. So he views the trucking industry, loads boards to find the load that will connect with the trucking company. And it can be anything from produce, steel bars, specialized freight. So he really is a service, but he's a connecting service. And so, once that this is achieved, the shipper receiver information is passed along to the trucking company, and any money left over from what the shipper is willing to pay, and what he can get from the trucking company to haul it, then he collects a percentage of that profit. So is that an e-commerce thing?
Potentially, yeah. I would imagine. So, you could definitely just out of the gate introduce automation into the mix to just make that job easier. Whether it's, a really custom form that people are filling out, and based upon their answers, it's routed any different, like maybe there's like a spreadsheet, or, the point is like something happens with that information after the fact. Yeah. I'm imagining in most of those scenarios that it's probably the person's actually paying the freight. So like he's not collecting that money and then paying. So with that in mind, like I don't necessarily think that you could call it e-commerce, because you wouldn't be necessarily collecting the information. Right. I'm not, he could always, like, if he didn't want to do it as a percentage, then he could charge an upfront fee. Mm-hmm. In which case, like, he'd be able to, scale it as like an e-com. Yeah. So there's some interesting things that you could do with just kind of like the fundamental design of the business, to make it more adaptable towards like an e-commerce model.
Definitely. Well, Thomas, we would love to have you as a client. So, and Chris has posted that in there to kind of help work through if this would be something specifically for you. And Natasha, I'm also going to say, and thinking of him, you have an upcoming in April. Natasha's going to talk to us about email marketing, which sounds like it really could help you getting the word out and getting some clients. So we have that coming up with you in April. And the meantime, I know that this has been an extended lunch break, so I hope you all had a good time with us, and we want to thank you again for being here. You will be emailed a copy of this presentation and recording, so please make sure that you have sent us, the panelists, your full name if it doesn't appear in the participant window. You'll also receive a brief survey that will help us continue to serve you and bring you quality programs. Chris, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. You guys don't forget that you can also find a list of our workshops at sbtdc.uark.edu, and you can also click on that QR code on your screen to get more information. There you go. We're also reposting all of the links now on how you can become a client and receiving consultation at no cost to you. You can see videos of our past webinars and workshops, find our future webinars and workshops, and numerous other tools and resources to help support you and your small business needs. And please don't forget that you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for more information. But until next time, we are so happy to have you guys all here. And I know I learned a ton. Amy, I'm sure you did too. So we'll see you guys all next time.
Thanks so much, Natasha. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.